Hi there, my name is Terry Smith. I'm the owner of Adorable Deco Decor, where we make and sell wreaths, and I also give others tips on making their own designs through my Facebook Lives and on my blog, which is at adorabledecodecor.com. And the adorable has two O's. But anyway, we're doing something a little different today. Now, there is a disclaimer, though. I do not underline, do not profess to call myself a seamstress by any means. I used to sew quite a bit when I was younger, and my kids were little, and made lots of clothes and fun things for them. But as they got older, then it's always embarrassing to wear mom's clothes that she's made. So anyway, so I've kind of put my sewing machine back in the closet, and took me a while to get it back up and running, but I've got it running now after a couple of YouTube videos, and I've been whipping out a bunch of masks. Um, um, Hopefully we'll have some fun. Like I said, underline, I do not profess to be a seamstress, okay? These are ways that I sew that are unique to me, and you might see me ripping out a seam or two, and I have some crooked lines, but all in all, the work gets done. So, um, like I said, this is the way I make masks. This is not a sewing lesson or anything like that, but um, it still functions as a usable mask. And this is not a medical grade mask, but um, studies have shown it does help transmission of the virus to others. Plus, from what I've read, around work and all the studies I've seen, the main way we get the or the coronavirus is from touching something contaminated and putting it to our face. So if nothing else, these masks can help you keep your hands off your face. And if you're like me, I'm constantly, I don't think I realized how much I put my hands on my face until I had a mask on, and it's like it's calling my name. I don't know. But anyway, so I started out, this is a 16-inch by 8.5-inch square, or rectangle. And we'll go ahead and let me turn you down here so you can kind of see a little bit better. So, all right, first thing I do, I take my material, and we've got the long ways. This is 16 inches. I take the long ways, or I take the short ways, and I just fold it up right sides together, kind of like that, okay? And then what we're going to do, now you can make this way, you can either put it to where you can put a filter in it, or you can just sew over that part if you don't want to. I've made them both ways. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make it with it, where you can stick a filter in it if you want to, like a coffee filter or something like that. But anyway, we're going to leave an opening. I usually leave it, what is that, probably about 3 inches or so. I'm just going to pin these sides together. I'm not seeing any comments on my phone. I see people commenting, but I can't read them where I can see them. But if you have any questions, just put them in the comments, and I will. If I miss them, I'll try to get to them after the live is over. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we're just going to sew. I'm just going to sew these two parts right here. And I usually use a 3/8 seam allowance. You can use whatever you want, but that's what I tried to stick with. I have to switch to my other glasses, guys. I can't see well enough with these glasses, I don't think. And I don't usually backspace on this part or anything like that. I said, I've not made any wreaths this week. I've got some really cute patriotic things to work with downstairs, and I got some healthcare signs I want to use, but I want to get these things done. Like I said, I'm making some for family, and the more I make, the more people request. So it's been a never ending. And actually, even my husband surprised me last night. He asked me to make 4 of them for some of his workers. And I thought they would just want something, neutral or masculine looking. I'll have to show you the material that they wanted, that he had me use. All right, we just clip off these ends down here. Okay, and so there's your opening. And I need to press this open. My iron is actually across the way over there. I'll have to run over and get that real quick. I didn't think that far ahead. But I just fold it to where my seam is going to be down the middle, and that actually, it helps that then you're not going to have to sew these 2 seams that would have otherwise had to be stitched. Just get that open, and I'm going to press that open real fast here. It'll take me 1 minute. Okay, sorry, I should have checked to see if my iron was hot before I did that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stitch along the edge here, because like I said, I'm going to leave this open so you could stick a filter in there if you like to. Okay, and we're just going to slide that in there like this. This is probably my least favorite part, because it's a little bit awkward, and I'm going to change glasses so I can see. I cannot see what I'm doing with those progressive glasses when I'm doing close work. All right, we're just going to stitch right along that seam. Just make sure you don't have the material bunched up underneath of it. Like I say, you don't have to do this step if you don't like to, or don't want to. And then I just turn it. I should have left that needle down. I just turn it, and then we're going to make a real short seam right here, or stitch line. Robin, I'm curious, how did you know that Coats and Clarks didn't have wooden spools since the 60s or 70s? How did you know that? You must sew a lot to know that right off the top of your head. Okay. Just clip that off, and you don't have to be real tidy with it because this is all going to be hidden, but I'm a little bit neurotic, so I go ahead and cut everything off. Okay, and so like I said, now we've got a nice seam there where it's not going to ravel or anything, and it'll stay nice and neat. Okay. Now, this next part is usually the hardest part for me, is to get the elastic lined up where it needs to go. So, okay, now you'll see a lot of patterns on the internet that call for the elastic. I like to use the 1/4 inch elastic earpieces. I've also had to use some hair bands. I just went to Walmart to see what I could get to fit or that would work. The hair bands that girls do the ponytails with, those will work. I've seen some use shoestrings to make ties for the mask. I don't like the ones to tie. When I'm at work, I have a hard time keeping the tied ones snug. So that's why I like the elastic ones. But anyway, all the measurements I found for earpieces for adults has been 7 inches. But I don't know if my husband and I have big heads or what, but I actually had to make a 10 for him, a 10-inch earpiece. But he's a big guy. He's like 6'3". He's a big guy. For myself, I'm more comfortable with the elastic about 8 inches. So that's what I'm going to use. And you can just kind of test it out, see what works for you. And we're going to take 2 pieces of them. And I tell you what, elastic's hard to find. I actually have found some on Etsy. And then I just lucked out one day. I called my Joann's, who's still doing curbside pickup, and they happen to have just a little bit. And so anyway, you'll see it both ways, how to do this next step. But for me, it's easier if I am looking at the fabric on the right side whenever I'm trying to decide where to place my earpieces. If I try to stick them from the inside, they end up all uneven and it just doesn't look good. So anyway, I go through just one layer of fabric. I've got the right side pointing at me, and it doesn't matter if it's a piece with the little slit here or if it's the other side. It doesn't matter. And just go up to a corner, and we're just going to pin that. Like I said, I'm just going to do it one layer, and I'll show you why here in a minute. Okay, and we'll go back. We're going to take this down to the other corner. Just make sure it's not twisted. That's one good thing about sewing, though. Most mistakes, you can fix it pretty easily, kind of like wreath making. Okay, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Yes, Christine, I'm making a mask. Hi, Teeny, how are you? I haven't seen you for a while. Oh, and you've been making masks also. I tell you what, I was just making them for us, just for, myself and, some of our family. And so far, the more I've made, the more I get asked to make. And it's been kind of crazy. But I've noticed that even at work, I work at the hospital, and even at work, there's a lot of people that are needing to wear the fabric mask. Okay. All right. So hopefully you can see that's what I've got right here. We've pinned it at both corners. Both corners. And the loop needs to go toward the inside. Don't do like what I used to do. I put it over this way. And didn't work out so well. Christine has asked if I'm selling them. No, I haven't sold any, but I guess that's a possibility. Like I said, I'm not professing to be a seamstress by any means, and some of them are not as good as others. Okay, now we turned it wrong side out, okay? And here's our slit again. That helps you kind of see where we're at. And we'll get it back to laying flat. And like I said, I've seen some people that will place it while the fabric's already right side together. I'm just not good. I can't do that. I just can't get it even when I do it that way. All right, and then we're going to pin the sides. I tried to tell my husband this is another instance with when my hoarding has paid off. I had all this, but we'll pin these together here. I guess I could make a listing for some and put them on my Etsy shop, Christine, if you're interested. I know most people are, like I said, once word gets out you're making them, most people are just crazy busy doing it. I think I saw Jane White. She's been selling about 30 a day, she said. Okay, now we've pinned it on both of the short edges. Okay, like that. And then we're just going to stitch down the sides. And make sure you don't have your elastic bunched up in there. Make sure your elastic is only where you're going to stitch over it, only in the corners. Ask me how I know. Okay, and there again, we're going to stitch down the side. I use 3/8 inch seam allowance. And one thing I did learn too, after turning the material wrong side or right side out, and then I use a pair of scissors to kind of poke the corners out. Make sure you stitch up close to the, I don't know if you guys can see that. Make sure you stitch up close to the edge so that when you poke those corners that you don't have a hole. I usually do a little back stitch just to be sure I'm there. I usually go real slow this part because I want to make sure that I'm over that elastic before I take my pin out, because otherwise it retracts and then it's got to start all over again. I just don't want to run my needle into the needle that's underneath, and usually this is how I do it. I just work it out from underneath. And I go back over it one more time, over the elastic one more time, just to be sure it's in there stitched real well. Like I said, I just raise that presser foot so I can get that needle out of the way. Okay. I'm just getting the needles out from under there so I don't poke myself. Okay, now we do the same thing on the other side. Sometimes you have to kind of help it go through whenever I'm going over the needle with the elastic there. I'm going to get that needle out of there, and then we'll turn it right side out. Actually, I should have two. Did I already take it out? Okay, now we'll just take it through. Now, one thing I failed to tell you, if you're not going to make the pocket where you're going to try to put the filter in, you're still going to want to leave this opening so that you can turn it wrong or right side out. So what we're going to do, I just take it by the corners is the easiest way. Push it right through that opening you've got there. Okay? Just kind of pull it by the elastic. All right, and then I usually just take my scissors and I poke the, oh, you know, one thing I forgot to do. Got busy talking and forgot to do it. If you want to, you can trim off the corners off the just take the corners. Just make sure you don't cut through the stitching there. And that makes your corners not be quite so bulky. Oh, Roberta said her grandson would love the Adventures. You know, I didn't know who those Avengers are. I mean, I knew all the characters, but I didn't know they were called the Avengers until I've had granddaughters, not grandsons, up until Skeet, my 3-year-old grandson. Okay, now we're going to turn that. Like I said, I just forgot to take out those corners. And I usually just take my scissors and stick them up in there in the corners and just gently poke them so that so you got a straight edge there. And this is the part where I was talking about. You want to make sure that you stitch right up to the edge on those corners. One more. Okay. All right, so that's what we have so far. We've got our earpieces, and then we've got this slit here in the middle where you can stick the filter if you want to. And then this is going to be our front. Okay? All right. Let me trim off. I got a few stray threads here. Okay. I'm going to put plenty of layers here. My husband would kill me if I ruined the table. So I'm just going to iron it out flat here to start with. Okay, now we've pressed it out nice and thin. And this next part is not a professional way to do it by any means. This is the way that works best for me. I've tried to make pleats, measuring them nice and tidy, nice and neat. I just can't do it that way. I just eyeball it. And I just start out, I make a pleat on either side, and all I do, I just take it and I kind of fold it under itself. I just kind of eyeball it. And when it looks right, then I'll bring my iron over here and just press it down. And if I like it, then I'll pin it. And I usually don't pin it along the edges because then what happens is my seam gets off kilter and I can't sew it nice and straight. So I put my pins in the center, and I'll show you how I work with it. Like I said, this is not This is not the way I was taught, but it's what works for me. Okay. All right. And then again, for me, the easiest way to figure out where I need to put my next seam, I do the bottom one first. You want to have 3 pleats generally. So, okay. And then I just make kind of a smallish pleat down here toward the bottom. Oh, let me iron it first. Fabric's still pretty warm. Okay, now doing it that way, then I kind of know where I want to put my middle pleat. And there again, I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not, it's not an exact science. Because if you think about it, when you put it on your face, you're not going to be able to tell anyway. Because all those pleats will stretch out. Okay. And you can kind of adjust it. Once you even, after even you press it, you can still adjust it if you need to. Okay. So that's what we have so far. Okay. All right. Now, get rid of the iron here a second. All right. And now all I'm going to do, I'm just going to sew right around the edge and capture all those pleats. And for this one, I just kind of line up the edge of the material with the edge of my presser foot. And I use my scissors here to kind of help keep the pleats in a line along the side, if that makes sense to you. Don't use your fingers because you end up hurting yourself. But I try to hold it down and keep them, because otherwise they kind of, for me, they kind of squish back and forth. Like that one, whoops. See, that one's kind of wanting to push to the side, so I'm just going to sneak him up in there, make him stay. All right, when we get to the end, I just turn it. And then I'm just going to kind of follow that edge right there. Don't need this pin anymore. Okay, and the same thing here. I'm going to use my scissors just to kind of guide it. Actually, you know what? I need to go another stitch or two, just so it's even. There. Okay, turn it. Then we just finish up the edge up here. Okay. Trim this off. Let me press it one more time. This is my official ironing board here, guys. Oh, I got to get the pins out too. Okay, and that's that, guys. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Those pleats, um, it's going to be stretched out anyway once you wear it. Okay, so don't kill yourself worrying about the pleats being perfect. And then if you want to put the um, filter in, like I've seen people use coffee filters or I don't know I've seen sweeper filters used too, but I don't know how safe that would be. I mean, a coffee filter to me seems pretty benign. Don't use something, some people were using fabric sheets also. I don't know how safe that is to inhale all that. So, but anyway, just stick a coffee filter in there. So okay.